that like button. So yeah, I wanted to hop on a little early just to talk to you guys, and before we have tonight we got your Saturday football, we got your Lions and the Cowboys, ladies and gentlemen. I will be streaming the game later, so make sure you guys lock it in. Stream is up for that already, so make sure if you guys do go over there, make sure you hit that thumbs up. It is much appreciated. All right, so what do we got? What do we got? We've got the Lions, we got the Cowboys, and I do think that this is going to be a great one for multiple reasons. Obviously, Cowboys at home. We know that they're juggernauts at home. They've had so many issues and so much trouble on the road. Could this be a bounce back game? Could this be the game where Dak Prescott says, you know what, I'm tired of what has been going on. I'm tired of losing. I want to go out here and I want to ball out. I want to win. And I think we may see that. I do think they're going to mix it up as far as the play calling. I do think that we're going to see the Cowboys go a little bit more aggressive than what they normally do. And then as far as with these Lions, the real question is going to be whether or not their defense can keep up, because I think we tend to forget what the Cowboys have done at home and how strong they have been. Now, on the flip side, as far as the Cowboys defense as well, this could be the game where they, say, hey, we've had so much talk and discussion as far as, how we've fallen off and things like that. We were coming off of a sickness in Buffalo. Miami, they was able to win in a close game. And, we're just not going to stand for that. Now, I will say this. As far as with the NFC and the AFC teams, the two differences is whether or not you know, you understand the teams in your division as far as their cadence, how they run their defense, their offense, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the day, I do feel like there's more of a conference rivalry with specific teams, especially when it comes to the NFC with the Lions, the Eagles, 49ers right now. As far as them all basically understanding each other and how they run their offenses and their defenses, and how they can approach certain situations and how they can get potentially outcoached moving forward. Now, getting into the difference between Miami and as far as how they borrowed the Bills playbook in regards to how to beat the Cowboys were on the road. So if the Lions go with that same approach inside the Cowboys stadium, I do think that it's going to be a bigger challenge for them on the run game, because I think now the Cowboys are actually prepared for it. But with that said, I'm gonna get into the spread here. It's 5.5 for your Cowboys at home. The over/under is 52.5, and that's a little high. That's a little high. You normally like to see, if they're expecting a defensive battle, you normally like to see an over/under right around like 32, 35, somewhere right around there. So they're definitely expecting this to be a high scoring battle on both sides. They're expecting tons of defense, tons of offense, not tons of offense. Not as much defense. And then of course the money line is going to be plus 10 for the Lions and minus 250 for the Cowboys, which that money line is a little high. And the reason why I say it's a little high is because the spread, there we go. The spread is actually minus 5.5. So when we look at the spread versus the odds on the money line, it's really interesting. Now, Cowboys 5.5. Obviously, I'm taking the Cowboys at home. That's just the reality of it. But the Lions could win this thing. We know how these things go, right? You expect the team to do something, and normally doesn't happen that way. Just like we expected the Jets and the Browns to be a low-scoring defensive battle, and they completely crushed the under and had us all sitting there dumbfounded because Joe Flacco's looking absolutely amazing. And yes, we can talk about Joe Flacco in regards to how well he's doing, and you can make the argument that yeah, he's been beating up on lesser teams, and let's see how he does against an actual challenge. That is true, and I think we may see those actual challenges come up in the playoffs for him, which I do think that first round is definitely going to be huge as far as the challenge that he may face. But let me go ahead and get into some of these comments before I keep going here. Shout out to you guys. Shane in the house, what up, man? Says you the best NFL streamer, Jay. Big up. Shout out to you, Shane. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support, my friend. Marvel in the house. Brian Miley, what up, man? Gojo in the building. Shout out to you guys. Tommy Montoya says Cowboys for life. Okay, okay. Detroit says go Lions. Serious Biz in the building says Detroit Lions 313. Let's go. What up, Bob? What's going on with you, man? Detroit says just put 250 on the money line plus 190. Did you miss the plus 210 or did you do it on a different sports book? Shout out to Michelle. What up, yo? What's going on with you? Ryan Devlin in the building. What's up, Ryan? Shout out to you. Father Time says the team got behind Flacco. It's football. I'll tell you this. I think they knew what they had, right? I think they knew what they had. And I think at the end of the day, they knew they had the opportunity to go out there, be great, and make the playoffs. And so when you take the Brown situation into account, you've already got a situation where they're like, okay, Dorian Thompson Robinson's going to come in and we'll rally behind him. And if he can do it, we're here to support him and give him the time that he needs to get out there and ball out. Well, Dorian Thompson Robinson, I think he definitely needs a little bit more time to develop. I do like him. I do think that he can be talented. We've seen what he did in college. It's just probably going to take him a little bit more time to actually develop so that he can be a viable asset to the team. Now get into Flacco coming in. Obviously, he has the experience, he has the drive, he has the determination to go out there and actually ball and take this team to the playoffs and then potentially to a championship and then could make it to a Super Bowl. And I think that's the biggest thing getting into this Browns team is really understanding that, yeah, Flacco is the one individual who could actually take you to a Super Bowl from that organization. And that's not to discredit Deshaun Watson because, sure, he has the talent, but we got into this conversation a few days back. Someone had mentioned, hey, Jay, what would you take or who do you think's better, Deshaun Watson or Joe Flacco? And I said, well, I think it's more of you have to basically break down the list of the things that they're good at, right? So Deshaun Watson's obviously, because of age, going to be more athletic and more have more speed than Flacco. But at the same time, Flacco's probably going to have a little bit better arm strength, a little bit better as far as accuracy, and better IQ as far as reading defense and all that kind of stuff. The big thing as well is the fact that Flacco has major, major experience when it comes to playing in these big games, being able to understand what it's going to take to actually go out there and win for the Browns and potentially get them to the point where they could be true contenders. And I think that's where a lot of people have, got the hype from. I think that's where a lot of people have, stepped back and actually take the Browns very serious as we should, because I think at the end of the day, that's one team in the AFC that could potentially put up a real fight against the Ravens, in which I do think that the AFC Championship will go through Baltimore. Um, with that said, obviously you guys know my Bills Mafia. I'm hoping that we can do it. But there is a lot of weird scenarios that could happen around the AFC, just like with the NFC right now. I do think that the Rams could be come out of nowhere and everybody's like, oh my goodness, the Rams are back, right? It could be one of those situations if they do make the playoffs and could potentially go out there and do what they need to do. Seahawks are still in this weird place. We get into Denver. You know what? Let's talk about Denver. Let's talk about Denver. Let's do that. So yeah, when we get into the Denver conversation, as far as Mr. Russell Wilson, there's been a lot of discussions as far as whether or not he was treated unfairly and whether or not Denver made the wrong move. And I would say this: I think that Sean Payton is more to blame here when it comes to the Denver Broncos situation. Now, at the end of the day, you're going to have people who do cape for Russell Wilson because, he's the good guy, he's the family guy, and all this kind of stuff. I get it. I get it. But then also on the flip side, you're going to have people saying, listen, I don't give a damn about Russell Wilson. He's making over $200 million. I'm not worried about millionaire problems, right? That's the reality of it. You can say that. I get it. But at the end of the day, the reality is this: I don't care how much money you make, right? It's all a part of a machine. So if you have someone that is treated poorly, right, no matter how much money they're making, and I do think that it comes down to basic we're not going to say ethics here, but a moral value behind a franchise. And you could kind of say, well, hey, Jay, there's no morality and money. And that's the reality of it, right? There's no morality in money. So, and especially when it comes to the NFL, so when you have these kind of situations where the team or the organization, not the team, the organization comes to you and they're like, hey, um, if you don't change your contract, we're going to put you on the bench. That's basically telling me, like, hey, we don't respect you. We know you're going to bitch up and you're just going to basically take whatever we give to you and, you're going to accept it. And so Russell said, no, obviously, I'm the nice guy, but I'm not gonna take that. I'm not gonna sit here and change up the way that the contract is. You guys signed the contract. I signed the contract. The lawyers looked over it. The agents looked over it. Everything had to be looked over. It's been settled. I'm not gonna change anything. And so they then say, well, you know what? We're gonna go ahead and bench you, even though we could potentially be going to the playoffs. It is a potential, and we're gonna bring in Stidham. And so at the end of the day, I think the reality is this: when you have that kind of situation and you have a team that's willing to throw you under the bus because you don't decide to make a monetary change as far as for a contract you already signed, I think that opens up the light to the organization. I think that opens up the light to the coaching as well as the owners. Because if, as an owner, you're allowing a coach to do this to the franchise quarterback, let me say that again. This isn't someone that, was just signed off the practice squad. This isn't a free agent that just came on the team. This is a franchise quarterback that you guys decided to pay $200 million dollars and also give up multiple picks to the Seahawks, right? When you have that kind of situation, it leads to people saying, well, what the hell is going on in Denver? If you can do your franchise quarterback like this, well, what else are you willing to do? And if I was a player on that team, I'm looking at the whole scenario like, yo, this could happen to me too. It's going to be really interesting to see how these players actually respond on the field to Sean Payton and these decisions that he decided to make when it comes to Russell. Now, me as a player, obviously, I'm getting paid to do a job, um, but I really think we're gonna see an interesting side of things when they step out on that field, and we'll see if they're gonna rally behind Sean Payton or we'll see if they're going to slack off and really give Sean put him on notice as far as that they're not going to accept what he did to Russell. It's kind of crazy, right? It's kind of crazy to be in that situation, but I don't think we've had this kind of situation happen for as long as I've been watching football, or I don't think that we've had this kind of situation happen where a franchise quarterback has just been thrown under the bus the way that the Broncos have. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. I'm interested to see as far as how this is going to play out for sure, but primarily on the field because I was saying this the other day. If this doesn't work, right? If the scenario doesn't work and Stidham can't go out there, and the Broncos legitimately had a chance to go to the playoffs, and they don't get there specifically because of this decision by Peyton, are the Broncos nation going to come for Sean Payton's head? That's the next question. Shout out to Serious Biz. It says a grown man on the bottle. Faces on fire says Russell hasn't even started his Denver extension yet. By the time in comparison to an incentive contract like Flacco's, Wilson mailed it in. Listen, here's the reality of it. I tell you guys all the time, I'm not mad about anybody who ever gets the bag. If your agent can go out there and get you the money and this team is offering it to you, get your money. But the reality is this: you definitely need to go out there and make sure that you do play as hard as you can as well. And we know that Russell Wilson had the issues and that he wasn't up to par and playing at the elite level that he should for the money that he was paid. But at the same time, when you see an individual actually go out there and improve, and then you decide to say, you know what? I don't care that you're improving. We want to, you need to restructure that contract or we're going to put you on a bench. That's basically like, telling your kid, like, hey, listen, I see that you improved in your grades, but, you know, I'm going to go ahead and take the Xbox away from you anyways, just because, I don't think you're doing good enough. Even though they changed them D's and C's to, B's and A's, you like, you know what? I'm going to take the Xbox away from you because I just still think you ain't doing good enough for me right now. And I'm mad. I'm angry. That's exactly what that is if you want to just put it in simple terms for the folks in the back. And that's just the reality of it. It kind of sucks, and I get it. I'm not really caping for Russell Wilson in a sense because he did have a hard time starting off where he did. He has been paid a lot of money, but I don't like the way that he was treated in this situation, and I really think that it could have been handled a lot differently. I do think that they could have went with a different approach as far as how they did it. And when you try to strong arm somebody for money that they legitimately earned, that's where the issue comes into it for me as far as, well, what the hell is this organization doing? And that's I don't think that's how Denver should be running things. Now, like I said, how the players respond to this is going to be the big point in regards to how this thing moves forward, and whether or not the Denver franchise makes sense from it. Because right now, I don't really believe that Sean Payton's the man for Denver. I don't even think that the Broncos is the organization that he's trying to make it into. Because if you guys remember, the Saints was a nasty organization for a long time, especially with the targeting and all that kind of stuff and the bounties that Sean Payton used to put out there. So what he's basically trying to do is turn this franchise into what it once was at with the Saints, and I don't think that's going to work for the Broncos because at the end of the day, they don't have that kind of culture, and the NFL is trying to move away from that specific kind of culture. So with this decision, I think it puts more scrutiny under Sean Payton more than Russell Wilson, and they're probably going to come for his head soon enough if it doesn't work out. Faces on Fire says, kill the head and the body dies. There you go. John Salazar, what up, man? Says, thanks as always for the videos. Let's go Buffalo tomorrow. Let's go, man. Let's go Bills. Morto says, I'm like number 47. Shout out to you, man. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the love. You win a shout out, my friend. You win a shout out. Serious Biz says he isn't in Denver's top 10 best quarterbacks of all time since the AFL. So, but how does that drive the narrative as far as treating anybody the way that you want to, right? That's the real question at the end of the day. Whether or not this individual is the best, he's at the worst, he's at the lowest point of his career, he's at the highest of his career. How should an individual who is a franchise quarterback be treated by the coaching staff and the organization, especially the Broncos? Drop it in the chat. Let me know how you guys feel about it. Faces on Fire says, I love when John Vilma talks about legal hits and stuff when he's commentating the irony. Yeah. Shout out to Corey Jackson. What up, man? Shout out to you guys on Facebook. Make sure you guys hit that like and, of course, share the stream with your friends and family as well. Shout out to all you guys for rocking with us today. So, yeah, I wanted to address the Broncos thing. That's how I feel about it. And now we can go ahead and get back over to these Cowboys and these Lions or whatever else you guys want to get back into. But I'll start back with these Lions and Cowboys. So, Lions are 11-4. Cowboys are 10-5. Obviously, we know the Cowboys are 7-0 at home. That's why I'm actually siding with the Cowboys more in this game than the Lions. I like the Lions. I like Jared Goff. I like Hutchinson. I like Gibbs. I like Montgomery. Amon St. Brown. I like Laporta. That whole offensive system that they have over there with the Lions, I love it. I love what they're doing. But the real question is whether or not this Cowboys defense is going to step up at home like they should and like they've been doing. And I do think this is one game where they'll probably get over the hump as far as what's been going on. Shout out to Nick. What up, yo? Nick in the building. Sirius says, I'm a real Denver fan. Prima donna like him is not significant to anything but a trashy soap opera line. So I get where you're coming from, right? I totally do. And the reason why I get it is because there's always been talks and conversations in regards to Russell Wilson and how he's acted to certain players and how he's acted around the league and all that kind of stuff. So some could say that this situation is warranted, right? Some could say that this situation is on Russell Wilson and that's why it's coming down on him. But what does that say about the integrity as far as the organization specifically? Because listen, if a person's bad, they're going to receive their karma and their just due off the jump, just naturally. I don't think anyone needs to stick their neck out and do that to a specific person for it to happen. I think if someone's bad and someone's been this kind of individual, then karma's going to come back to bite them on their own. With that said, are we going to say that Sean Payton's a good person over Russell Wilson? Can we say that? Because that's kind of crazy. Shout out to Deadman says Russell isn't playing good. He's playing safe, throwing though, but he doesn't deserve the disrespect. And that's my point, right? That's all I'm saying. I get whatever you want to do as an organization when it comes to saving money, right? Because that's what it boils down to. The whole thing is about money. But at what point is it okay to disrespect somebody at that level and strong arm them, right? It's not like they said, hey, we need to restructure your contract and we're going to give you this incentive, we're going to give you that incentive. And how do you feel about this? It was, listen, you need to change your contract or we're going to sit you on the bench, right? If your boss, for the people that actually work, if your boss came to you right now and was like, listen, have a seat, we need to go ahead and change your salary right now or you got to quit. You're going to feel some kind of way about that. You're going to feel disrespected. You're going to feel mad as hell because at the end of the day, someone's coming to you and telling you how they're going to change your salary, change your payroll, change your livelihood. It doesn't matter. See, this is what a lot of people do. A lot of people will look at the amount of money and they'll use that as an excuse to be like, oh, well, you know what, whatever. I don't care about them getting disrespected. They're getting millions of dollars. It doesn't matter if you're getting paid $200, $2,000, 200,000, 200 million. Disrespect is disrespect. So at the end of the day, when we have these kind of conversations, it's still a human being at the end of the day. It's still a human being. Now, does that discredit the fact as far as him playing well and him not going out there and playing at the best of his ability? No, it doesn't. But that's not what we're talking about, right? We're not talking about him playing bad and then they're making this decision. We're talking about an improving quarterback who is trying to adjust to a basically trash offense at the time, who was still building on their chemistry to come back and basically have this conversation after things are starting to potentially look up and you're on a potential move to get to the playoffs. We got to make sense of it. We got to make sense of it. Bob says Broncos need to lose the next two games. do they need to lose? Shout out to Serious Biz. Says the front office hasn't used good business since Pat Bowlen was running to things. The new ownership group has zero credibility regarding NFL structure, etc. Yeah, and you know what? The reality is this too. I think you could say that a lot of the NFL teams right now have been doing bad business deals. Tons of bad business deals. And I'll tell you why. I look at Joe Flacco's contract and the incentives that the Browns put in there for him, and I was so elated and ecstatic about it because it's like this is a man that was sitting on his couch basically waiting for a call, and it seems like, hey, we need a quarterback that has experience, that's a veteran, that can go out there and actually win. And at the end of the day, they said, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you this contract for this amount of money, but you have to hit these milestones for these big paydays. And you know what Joe Flacco did? He went out there and he balled out, and he's playing some of the best football that we've seen out of any veteran quarterback in years. And he's even beating out some of these younger guys, and he's put up more touchdowns than some of these teams have all season. It's absolutely insane. So next year, when we're talking contracts and things like that, I can definitely see some of these owners being like, listen, you see that contract that the Browns did for Flacco? Well, we need to start instituting that for some of these other players. I don't think we're going to see too many of these $250 million, $300 million contracts anymore, or at least at the guaranteed money level when they're looking at the talent that they can get for so little money, especially with the incentives. So when that happens, you're going to start seeing people step up more. You're going to start seeing people play more. You're going to start seeing people try to basically make sure that they don't get injured as much or they rehab better than they normally have. And I think that's a good thing for the NFL. I think that's a better way to go about it. And I think that gets rid of some of the bad business that some of these teams have done. So you don't have to put a situation like this or have to go through a situation like this in regards to Russell Wilson. Shout out to Lorenzo. Says guaranteed Denver will go 1-16 next year just when they're rolling, just being crazy. So the question is who does that fall on, right? Does it fall on the Waltons? Does it fall on Sean Payton then? Who gets criticized and who do we crucify at that point if they go 1-16 next year? Immortal says he was getting in shape, not sitting on the couch, y'all. He said he was out there ready to go in the backyard throwing bombs. Shout out to Flacco, yo. Mountain Maze says Russ can kick rocks. All right, I see. I see how you feel. Listen, there's really no wrong way to feel about his stat level, right? I totally get that. I think what we're having a big qualm or issue with is the disrespect about it, right? There's certain ways to go about this whole situation. If you ain't playing good, then all right, we need to move on from you and we're going to make these changes and we're going to handle it this specific way. But to be disrespectful about it, I think that's the big problem when we talk about what's going on with Russell. Listen, I was talking about it last year. You guys know I was streaming the Broncos games. We were having a good old time and we were talking about how bad he was playing, and it was sad. And we was feeling for the Broncos fans because it shouldn't have been Broncos on a Thursday night. And we're all sitting there like literally in the third quarter, we're talking about donuts and shit because that's just how we get on these streams. And it was bad, right? So now the reverse was this year. Okay, Russell's playing better. He's improving. I like what I'm seeing. He's finding Sutton more. Williams is running that ball a little bit better. Judy's out there making some plays. And at the end of the day, things are starting to look up. So I think that's another reason why this is such a different situation for a lot of the fans, a lot of the media, the analysts, and as well as for Russell Wilson for sure. It says need total both sides of the ball. House cleaning. Let's go. Shout out to Blaine the Pain. What up, man? What's going on with you? Serious Biz says all of them, Jay. Yeah, there's been a lot of like I said, a lot of bad deals, and there's only been a few there's only been a few people that I could say that is actually playing for their money. One of them primarily for me is Lamar Jackson, right? Everybody made such a fuss as far as the amount of money that he wanted because his shelf life was probably not going to be as long as other quarterbacks because he's a glorified running back. That's what they say. Um, and at the end of the day, right, he was able to negotiate that contract basically on his own, right? He did have some influence, but he was basically able to negotiate that contract on his own, and he's still balling. He got what he was due, and he went out there and he showed everybody that I'm the man for the job, and he's done it. Then we look on the flip side, Joe Burrow. What happened to Joey B? Joe Cool. He got paid all that money, got injured, and then he even cost the team more money because they faked the injury report. They faked the injury report, cost the team more money. So the Bengals just throwing away cash. And then we sit here and we have these conversations about a person like Russell Wilson who was actually go out there and trying, and the organization just throws him under the bus. Make it make sense. It's got to work both ways. It's got to work both ways. If you're okay with throwing Russell Wilson under the bus because he was improving and trying to become better, and he had a bad couple years, well, then you got to throw Joe Burrow under the bus too because he got paid hundreds of millions of dollars. And he hasn't done nothing for the team. We got to make it make sense. We got to make it make sense. Shout out to Rick. Says go Bills. Let's go, man. Let's go, bro. Bling says Flacco playing the lose yourself in his head. He's ready to go. Becky McDermott in the house. Shout out to you, Becky. Says Russ had better numbers than Mahomes. You gotta make it make sense. Shout out to Luta. Says second line playing his heart out. Russell Wilson was dope in the second half versus the Bears this season. He was. Shout out to Brian Allen. Says Russ can't protect the ball. And I do think that's a big part of it, right? Russ can't protect the ball. He's been having a lot of issues as far as, taking sacks and things like that. But what does that say about his stats being better than Mahomes? Right? Mahomes is the half a billion dollar man. What does that say about Mahomes? He's been having a tough year. He needs some wide receivers. Travis Kelce, he's going through his love life. He's got the lady on the brain and he's being triple teamed. He's like, listen, I can't catch the ball. See, y'all blaming the Taylor Swift curse. That man being double team, triple team, and they know that that's the well. But here's the real thing, right? I do think that when we get into the Mahomes discussion, I remember a time where it was 3rd and 17. It was 3rd and 16. Mahomes couldn't find nobody to throw to. He was still running for 16, 17 yards. He was still picking up a first down because nobody could get him in that open field. What happened to that? What's going on with that? Right? It's still on him. He was making them plays. What's going on? And you could kind of say that the defenses have basically figured out Mahomes and really curtailed, all those things that he's been known for because we're not seeing that magic anymore, right? Even without him having the best wide receiver group, Mahomes should be able to still make some kind of magic. We're seeing picks. We're seeing him being hurried up. He's being real emotional. He's crying out there. He's throwing his helmet. He's screaming at the refs. And we can talk about Tom Brady. We can talk about Tom Brady because we've seen that at a low point in his career when things weren't going. But I think the difference is Tom Brady had that momentum to shift, right? He had that drive and that determination and that focus to really sit down and figure out these defenses and to turn the team around. He also, which I think is probably the most important point, and some of you probably know where I'm going with this, Tom Brady was the individual that would say, you know what? Forget giving me $500 million. Give me 200. Let's take 300 and go out there and get me 3 receivers that can catch. Let's go ahead and add some money for the defense in there too. I'm willing to take a pay cut so I can make this team into what I need to, so I can go out there and get to a championship and win a Super Bowl. Everybody right now is for the money. Me, 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 me. No, I'm worth $500 million. I can go out there and be great. I don't care who's on the field. Well, listen, at the end of the day, if you make that statement, if you say I don't need to pay anybody else, I'm worth that $500,000, you have to work with who you have on the field. And you better be damn good enough to make them great. Because we haven't seen anybody made anybody great since the Tom Brady era. Shout out to Make Football Great Again. Immortal says Bills and Browns will be feared in the playoffs. Shout out to you, man. Let's go. Lorenzo says Jamar Chase said nobody is scared of Kansas City. They're not. They're not. I think the reality is this: when you step onto that field against Kansas City, you almost have this feeling that Mahomes is going to make a mistake now and throw a pick. It's almost like we know what's coming. We know what's coming. And I was telling you guys I think at the beginning of the season, when the Lions had beat the Chiefs in week 1, I was like, listen, this may be the year where the Kansas City Chiefs may not even make it to the playoffs. And if they do, they're a first-round exit. I said that. Some of you remember it, some of you don't. But I said that. And now as we get to these last weeks, we're sitting here like, oh, man, what's going on with the Chiefs? What are they going to do? What's Andy Reid going to do? What are they going to figure out? And it's now to that point where people are really realizing that, well, maybe Kansas City isn't the team that we thought they were unless they have these specific individuals. And you can blame, the scenario on Tyreek Hill and be like, oh, well, Tyreek's gone and, things have changed because of that. Listen, I say this all the time. Shout out to you, Eli. Yeah, the game is at 8, bro. It's at 8 o'clock. I say this all the time. When we get into the conversation as far as different individuals and different people being the driving force of the team, that leads to that team being a downfall when that person is gone. And for instance, we'll use Tyreek Hill as an example. Or no, that's too easy. We'll use Justin Jefferson, right? Justin Jefferson goes down. They basically have to pick up the pieces over on the Vikings to figure out, who's going to be the individual that's going to step up, right? Who's going to be the individual that's actually going to go out there and make the plays? Hawkinson then goes down. So now who's going to figure it out, right? So now what like I said, when you have the individual who's going out there and making the plays, making the decisions to make the team better, you don't have to worry about losing that one individual because you've built the chemistry with Sky Moore. You've built the chemistry with Rice. You've built the chemistry with Tony. You've made sure that all these other targets can be concentrated on, and you can make some room for Kelsey. Kelsey can actually be that playmaker that you need because they know that everyone else is being utilized in that circle instead of saying, "Oh, we know he's got a problem with Tony. He ain't gonna throw to Tony no more because he dropped the ball. He ain't gonna catch it. He fumbled, or he ain't gonna go this way because he know he threw a pick last week, and that's still in his brain." And I do think right now, this season is really resonating in Mahomes' mind right now more than it ever has because once you get used to winning and you haven't really experienced a tough season and tough losses, you let that resonate in you. You get real emotional. And that's why you're starting to see these faces and these pouts and these throwing the helmet down. Ref, what are you doing? Just let us play. Just let us go out there and be great. The people want to see us be great. Listen, Mahomes, we never seen you like this, man. You have to go out there and find a way to be great. You have to go out there and find a way to win. And unfortunately, at this point in your career, that requires you to step up and use who you have on the field because nobody else is going to save you. Andy Reid can't go out there and throw the ball for you. You got to figure it out. So let's stop pouting. Let's stop whining and figure out a game plan that's going to make sure that you guys can potentially get to the playoffs and do something. Because the reality is this, ladies and gentlemen, right? We're talking about the Browns and the Ravens. I wanted to see my Bills versus Kansas City in the AFC Championship. I wanted the Bills win legitimately against Kansas City. And unfortunately, I may be robbed of that this year. The Bills may have to go through somebody else, which, hey, I'm fine with it if it happens that way. But the reality is I wanted to see Bills in Kansas City in another AFC Championship. We may get robbed of that experience. We may see the Browns and the Bills. We may see the Browns and the Ravens. We may see the Ravens and the Browns. It may be so many different variations right now, but the reality is I wanted to see that. Shout out to Ramal, man. Says Brady would have figured it out. You know what? And that's the biggest fact, right? That's the biggest fact when we talk about, greatness and when we talk about the GOAT. You always have these conversations with people who say, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT." Well, listen, I think to be the GOAT, it's more than just winning a Super Bowl or two. It's more than just flashy passes. It's how you respond in these situations. Because at the end of the day, the Chiefs could very well come back. They still have time to do it. It's not over for the Chiefs. That's the reality of it. But the way that things are right now, you lose to the Bengals tomorrow, what kind of conversation are we having about the Chiefs then? We're literally sitting here like, yo, if you lose to the Bengals tomorrow, then, I think any real hopes of you making it to the Super Bowl is kind of out of the question. So, yeah. Shout out to Charles. Says, hope the Lions defeat the Cowboys. We'll see, man. We'll see. Bob says Dak is the new GOAT. Yeah. Shout out to Lutus. Says AFC is drama. It is. AFC is definitely drama. Just from looking at standings point of view right now, AFC is very interesting. Miami, right? AFC East looking to take that depending on how things go. My Bills, 9-6. You've got Baltimore, the Browns, Steelers, Bengals are at 8-7 apiece. AFC South, and we haven't even got into the AFC South. Let's get into the AFC South. I'm really, really let down by the Jags, and I'll tell you why. Trevor Lawrence, right? They have had such an interesting start to this season. They were doing so well. Lawrence gets injured, right? And then they decide to bring him back, and I think is way too fast because he wasn't playing up like himself. He didn't look like himself. And now they're like, well, you know what? He's out again. That lets me know that they rushed the decision because they're like, oh, we got to get him back in. We got to get him back in so we can win. Opposed to, hey, biting the bullet, letting the backup go out there and play so that this man can actually heal. And if you need him the most in week 18 or week 17, then you bring him back. But now you have him out, and what could be considered a real determining factor as far as the end of the season, because now you got the Colts at 8-7. Now you got the Texans at 8-7. Either one of these two teams, in which I'm leaning probably more towards the Colts, they may just figure it out. But you got these two teams that could potentially take the AFC South, all because of the coaching staff basically not taking the proper necessary measures in regards to their franchise quarterback to make sure that he's healed and ready to go. Once again, we talk about ridiculous coaching and decisions that these guys make. That's another one of them, another example. Then we get into the AFC West. You got the Chiefs 9-6. You got the Raiders 7-8. Broncos 7-8. How about these Raiders? Pierce is looking like an absolute genius right now, and he's looking like the man to actually take the job potentially, and I could see that happening. I like Aiden O'Connell. I like the way that this Raiders team is going. The defense is looking absolutely amazing, and at the end of the day, the Raiders could be in a situation where we're looking at them like, well, what the hell? They just came out of nowhere. It's another one. Broncos, I don't think Stidham's going to do anything. I also don't think the team morale's at a high point right now at all. So I think they're just going to bomb out the next two games. Yeah, but that's the AFC West. Shout out to Carter. What up, man? Shout out to you guys on Facebook for rocking with us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit that like button, that thumbs up. It is much, much appreciated. Shout out to you guys for rocking with us on a Saturday. Saturday vibes, you guys know how we do. Scott Coley, what up, man? What's going on with you, Scott, in the house? So now getting into the NFC, right? You got the Eagles, number one in the NFC East, 11-4. Dallas right behind them at 10-5. Giants out, Commanders out. NFC North, you got the Lions, 11-4. Then you got the Vikings and the Packers at 7-8 apiece. The Bears at 6-9. I mean, who gets the wild card out of the Vikings and the Packers, right? Then you got the NFC South. The Buccaneers 8-7. Falcons and Saints are tied at 7-8 apiece. Then you got the NFC West. You got the 49ers 11-4. You got the Rams 8-7. Seattle Seahawks 8-7 as well. Things are really, really starting to look weird. I do think that the Rams will potentially make a potential run for it as well. I'm not so sure about Drew Lock. I'm not, unless Geno Smith can come back. I'm just not sure about Drew Lock and what they're able to do over there. He did have a miracle win. I get it. I like the guy. I'm just not sure as far as getting into these high-pressure games and these high-pressure moments, they're actually going to be able to go out there and be efficient or at better than the Rams at this point and down the stretch. Down the stretch there. Sirius says, paper contenders. Says Dallas, America's team. Let's go. Shout out to you, man. How about Mizzou? Listen, I kind of looked at the Ohio State score thing. They only scored like 3 points, and it was some kind of stat about it. It was like the first time in history that that's ever happened where it was 3 points scored and that coach's error. And I'm like, wow, that's insane. I do think, things obviously start to switch up as far as college. You've got a lot of these guys who are playing at a different level now, right? They understand what's at stake. And the weird thing about the way that college is going is we're going to start seeing some of these college games really, really become very significant down the road. So some of these players are playing astronomical football. Some of these players are even looking better than some NFL players right now in college. So it's definitely changing the narrative as far as, even how I'm going to start streaming, because I definitely want to get more involved with the college. I will be doing the games on the first, and I will be doing the national championship. But I like what I'm seeing, man. I like what I'm seeing for sure as far as with the college. Bacon Nation says, good afternoon, people. Early start today. No, we're just chopping it up. We're just chopping it up on an early Saturday. I'll be streaming later I'll be streaming the game later for the Lions and the Cowboys. That's gonna be at 8 o'clock. Shout out to Lori. Says let's go Detroit. Shout out to you, Lori. Let's go. Uh Shout out to you guys. Says NFL process Browns are going to the playoffs. Go Browns. I'm liking them, man. I'm liking them. I really am. I do think that as we get down the stretch, as far as with the Browns, it's really going to be one of those situations where we start looking at whether or not Flacco is going to be the man to complete the mission, right? He may be the man for the job now, but is he going to be the man to complete the mission? Because things are going to change and it's going to be one and done. It's going to be one and done when we get to these playoffs for sure. YBK, what up, yo? This is Jay's the GOAT. Let's go, man. Let's go. So yeah, my score prediction for tonight. My score prediction for tonight. I do think that we're gonna have a great game. Obviously, Vegas is calling for a high-scoring game. They're thinking it's gonna be an offensive battle. We get into these conversations where we think something's gonna be super offensive and high-scoring. It ends up being a situation where we're all sitting there and it's 0-3 at the end of the first quarter. I'm personally gonna go with the under. I think I'm going to go with the under. I think I'm going the under the 52 and a half. I'm going to take Dallas by a touchdown. I think they take it by a touchdown. But yeah, I do think it's going to be more of a defensive battle. I don't think it's going to be as offensive based as they're making it out to be. I could be wrong. Obviously, you know how this thing goes. It's always crazy. But yeah, I'm thinking the over in Dallas by 7. Shout out to Maria. Says go Pack go. Let's go. Lori says Bills Mafia for life, but Flacco should get the comeback player of the year over Ham. You know, let's talk about that. We got time. Let's talk about that. Actually, I need to get water. Hey, babe. Babe. She can't hear me. I need to get water. She can't hear me. All right. As far as comeback player of the year, let's get into that one. So you've got people on all different kinds of sides about this, and I actually posted up a meme about it. Well, not a meme, but just an actual fact on Facebook, and it was whether or not people actually thought who should win it between Damar Hamlin and Joe Flacco. And I think you get the sentimental aspect to Damar's situation, right? You understand that the man died on the field. You understand that it was very, very, it was a sensitive situation for a lot of people, right? It was very heartbreaking, heart moving. And at the end of the day, I get why people would feel that way. But then if you look at from a football standpoint, he's only put up 2 tackles this season, right? He hasn't suited up in a long time. We haven't seen him on the field. And it really starts to question those. It's like, okay, at what balance do we say that Damar Hamlin deserves comeback player of the year when he hasn't done much on the field? Then on the flip side, you have someone who's been out of the game, waiting for a call. He finally gets the call. And quick shout out to Heath for sending a $5 donation. Thanks a lot, Heath. Shout out to you, man. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the donation. When you get someone like Flacco coming off of the couch, basically, and he comes out and he changes the whole franchise and he changes the whole narrative as far as what veteran quarterbacks can do on the field. And you look at the stats and you look at everything that he's brought to the table and the trajectory of the Browns now based off his work, it turns into a situation to where you're fighting against, or certain people are fighting against their moral compass and understanding that this is, this could be something that becomes performance based. It's very hard to not be biased for certain individuals as well. Obviously, I'm a Bills fan. You guys know that. I don't like being biased in these kind of situations. So how I look at it is this. I look at it as we understand and appreciate what happened, and I don't think anybody else does more than me considering I streamed that game live. We had 6 to 7,000 people in the chat, and I'm dealing with a situation where people are literally blowing up the chat with needles and propaganda and all kinds of stuff. So I had to deal with that as that situation happened live in the moment with 6 to 7,000 people in the chat. Some of you remember it, some of you don't. So it goes a little bit further into as far as, thinking about the situation and who deserves it and who doesn't. Now the reality behind Flacco is I appreciate a great player. I appreciate a veteran coming out and balling and doing everything they need to do on the field and making a great story out of it. So, do I give Flacco the comeback player of the year, or do I give Demar? Shout out to Patty coming through with the $5 super chat. Shout out to you, Patty. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Says character doing a classic mic drop. Let's go. Shout out to you, Patty. Um, Thank you for the support. Thank you for the $5. Lori says Demar no doubt had to overcome a ton of physiological issues and was thrust into the spotlight as a rookie. He was a third stringer, so that has to account for something. Depends on how one defines comeback. He literally died on the field. Yeah, and that's like I said, that's the discussion, right? And that's why it makes it so hard to sit here and have the process of even trying to figure out who deserves it more. How do we value life? Right? That's the question. How does someone value life? And for some people, they don't care about Damar Hamlin. That's just a reality of it, right? We got to check all the boxes. There's people out here who don't give a damn about Damar Hamlin, right? They don't give a damn that he died on the field. That's just the reality of it. So when we have the conversations and we go through these discussions, we have to account for all of that, right? We don't leave that out. I understand that some people don't, right? They're fans of different teams and all that kind of stuff. And those are all people that are considered in that specific vote. That's just a reality of it. But when we come to understand that someone died on the field and they did step up and they did get back out there in the field and they did say, you know what, I'm not going to let this stop me from potentially doing what I love to do. I think that carries a lot of weight because a lot of people who died on the field probably would have just, left it alone. They probably just would have retired, moved on with their life, collected their pension, and been done with it. That's just the reality of it. So I'm not sure how we go about it. I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I'm going to give who I would pick. And I really don't think there's a right and wrong answer. I would basically pick Joe Flacco, and I'll tell you why. I would pick Joe Flacco because I think that the award is more performance based, right? I think it's more performance based. And what Flacco has done has not only changed the narrative as far as the Broncos or the Browns franchise, but changed this Browns team's trajectory and could potentially set them up for one of the best runs they've had in a long time. Now, the thing about Damar Hamlin is he's already received a lot of the praise that anyone in his situation that has went through that should, right? Tons of people have already donated to his organization for the kids. He's already received, the praise and the spotlight for a lot of that time. So I do think that he's already received a lot of recognition that he should have, and that was due for someone that was in his situation. But as far as comeback player of the year, I do think it's more performance based. So I do think that Flacco may actually deserve it just by that much, because of what he's displayed on the field for the Browns. So there you go. There you go. It says Jordan served his year hiatus after his father was senselessly murdered, came back, won three in a row. It's a fact. It's a fact. Shout out to Lori. Says totally agree. As a Bills fan, many also said if he that injury didn't occur in Buffalo would have cut him. You know, and that's another conversation too, right? That's another conversation too. At some point, would the Bills have cut DeMar if the injury didn't happen, right? Would he even still be on the team? So I think a lot of that's significant because if the Bills would have cut him after that happened, it would have been a PR nightmare. It would have been absolutely disastrous to the Bills organization and all the fans. So that just couldn't happen, right? They had to keep him on board, have him out there, on the sidelines, cheering the team on, you know, give out that warm family feel thing to the situation. And that was needed, right? I'm not disagreeing with that at all. That was needed. But we know the reality of how the NFL works. And if you're not cutting it out there, you're not balling, they're eventually going to get rid of you. And that's just the reality of it for sure. For sure. YBK says, in my opinion, Jay, Damian Harris, and DeMar Hamlin were scary, life-threatening stuff, man. Um, I'm not so sure about the Damian Harris situation specifically. I mean, he did have a situation with a jet ski, that was kind of self-inflicted. Um, and it's been really unfortunate. You're talking about not that's Naheem Hines. My bad. I'm talking about Naheem Hines. My bad. You're right. You're right, bro. You're right. I was thinking about Naheem Hines in my head for some reason, but you're right. You're right. Um, Heath says, "I'll see you tonight. Gotta go grocery shopping. Thanks, bro. See you all later." Yeah, shout out to you, Heath. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the $5 donation. Much appreciated. So yeah. That's like I said, I'm going Dallas by 7 and the under. That's going to be my score prediction, ladies and gentlemen. Patty says, right. I've said that right along. Yeah. Yeah. You know, uh, I do want to address one more thing as far as the Bills. I think this is very, very important too. I think at the end of the day, um, right now where the Bills are, you've got Patriots and you got Miami. I do think that Miami is going to lose to the Ravens tomorrow, and that's going to turn Week 18 into an absolute slugfest and one of probably the most important games of the Bill season, as well as Miami. With that said, these are the kind of games that either typically bring out the best of the Bills or the worst. Because there's no way in hell that the Patriots should win this game, but we typically have the ability to lose for ourselves. So the reality is Bills have to play smart football. Joe Brady's got to go out there with a solid game plan going into tomorrow. McDermott has to make sure that he's, not only coaching at an elite level, at a high level, but also make sure that he's figured out a proper defensive scheme that is going to make sure that every base is taken care of. Uh, we don't need a situation to where it turns into a chess match between Bill Belichick and Sean McDermott because we know at the end of the day, Bill Belichick is able to outcoach the smartest of them. And that's just the reality of it, right? We need Sean McDermott to be at the top of his game as far as coaching the defense and the team. Joe Brady's got to figure out this offense, and we need Allen to execute at a high level, not make mistakes, not force anything. I would like to see James Cook keep running that ball, keep pounding the middle, run through that defense. I want to see Stephon Diggs in the slant actually catch the ball. You get it out on the screen. You pick up 5, 6, 7 yards, right? If you can get a first down, get it. Uh, bring Gabe Davis back in the mix. We know that he's prime time in big games. Um, and that's just the reality of it, right? Get that O-line working. Maybe Von Miller can get some good stops, right, on the defense. Ed Oliver, those guys doing what they do. Russo and them work making it happen. It sucks that we don't have Matt Milano back, but we did get Jones back in, so that's a good thing. And just go out there and play Bills football. Obviously, have fun at the end of the day, but make sure that you're taking care of business. I don't want another roller coaster ride. I don't want to be on the edge of my seat streaming the game like this. I don't want that. I want a good, solid victory. Bills show dominance. Put fear in Miami's heart for next week because I think that's going to be needed. This thing's going to be psychological. Bills need to go out there and ball out and play their best game for sure. For sure. Lori says Buffalo always finds a way to snatch a loss from the jaws of victory. Totally believe the Ravens will best Miami. Shout out to you, Lori. Yeah. Patriots already smashed y'all this year. Yeah, that's fine. We can split. We can split. Veggie says Bills playing at home. Yes, they are. 1:00 game. I'll be streaming it tomorrow. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So there it is. Shout out to you guys on a Saturday, showing the love, showing the support. Always a great conversation. Always great discussions. Love all you guys. I'll see you at 8 p.m. for the Lions and the Cowboys. Make sure you lock it in, subscribe, hit that like button, and I will see you all later. Have a great, great Saturday afternoon, and I will see you all later. Peace out.